gardeners, welcome back to my channel. I am here with Chacho. Yes, hello. So in today's video, I know in the last video I said that the next video would be reptile related, and it's not. It's actually amphibian related. So, I mean, it's in the same group. It's a herp, so we're going to talk about it. I actually just set Janemba up in a new enclosure, and as I was building it, a ton of you guys were asking if I could turn it into a video, so I filmed the whole thing. So I'm going to show you guys exactly how I built this enclosure. I've already made his enclosure before in the past, not too long ago, and I basically didn't like it very much. It didn't last very long. He was in a 55-gallon enclosure, which is still the same now, but he had a lot of dirt in there, and he had live plants, and he had a little swimming area. The problem with that enclosure was that it was ridiculously hard for him to get in and out of the water bowl, so that was an issue, and he wasn't really using it. So I ended up taking that out, and he basically just had a 55-gallon enclosure just full of dirt. And he did have live plants, but literally within a matter of a few days, he dug all of those up and just completely killed them and stomped on them and just took the worst beating of their life. So they did not last very long. So I've been thinking about how I can set up this enclosure. That way he's able to swim and be able to burrow and just be able to access everything way easier. And of course have it look better too, because he was literally in a 55-gallon enclosure full of dirt, and that was it. He would literally just burrow, and that was his life, and that's kind of depressing. So I needed to do something different. So after doing a ton of research and looking at what other people have done, I've seen so many amazing enclosures where people do naturalistic setups with live plants. Again, I just wanted to avoid that because of my past experience with Janemba. I don't trust him with live plants at all, so I wanted to use fake plants for this enclosure. So with this new setup, what I wanted to do was I wanted to give Janemba a lot more swimming space instead of just having a ton of burrowing space, because I noticed that when he does burrow, he does tend to stay in the same areas. He doesn't really move around and find new burrowing spots very often. So he doesn't need that much space to burrow, but he does need way more space to swim. So what I wanted to do was use his old water bowl and actually just use that as a little dirt pit for him, and that would be where he can burrow, and then the rest of the tank will just be a swimming opportunity for him. So as I was setting this up, I thought I could skip using any foam, and I literally just filled up this little water tub that used to be a water tub. I put dirt in it, and I set it in the enclosure where I wanted it to be, and I filled the tank with water. When I did this, the burrowing area just floated away. So it would have been completely impossible for him to access, and it was just ridiculous, and I had to take all of the water back out of the tank and just start over. So I realized I had to use the foam just to make sure that the burrowing area would stay in place. So what I did was I found a place where I wanted to put his burrowing section, and I used Great Stuff foam, which is safe for reptiles and amphibians. So I put that in the corner of the tank, and then I pushed the burrowing area into that corner. I also had this fake little rock that also works as steps, so that way it would be much easier for Janemba to climb up and get into his burrowing section and also be able to get out safely. So I used the Great Stuff foam, and I put all of these things in place in one corner. That way the rest of the enclosure can just have water in it. So after applying the foam, I had to let it sit for 24 hours because that's how long it takes to dry, to make sure that everything is nice and hard and safe. So after that 24 hours, I checked on everything. It was all looking great. Then it was time to carve it down. There was one area above the stepping area before he gets into the dirt pit, and it kind of just completely overgrew. It was just this huge foam spot. But I actually liked it, and I took advantage of it, and I used it to shove a fake plant into just for more decoration. I carved off the rest of the foam. I was trying to make it really easy around the edges by the stairs to make sure that it's easy for him to be able to climb up and get into his pit if needed. So the whole point of this enclosure was just to make sure that it's easy access for him to be able to choose if he wants to be in the water or burrowing in dirt. So after everything was in place, I just decorated everything. I used a ton of fake plants that are very durable for him, unlike the live plants that he totally would have killed. So I actually shoved those plants into the foam to hold them into place. I put a lot of them down by the water area just so that way when he is in the water, he has hiding places to feel safe and secure. I didn't want it to just be bare because he may not feel very safe and then he might not go swimming at all, which I know it's very important for the bullfrogs to be able to swim, so I really wanted him to be able to utilize that in the tank. So I added those plants to make sure that he would have hiding places to feel safe when he is in the water in case he feels he has to get away from a predator. And then I put other fake plants just all around to decorate everything. I don't really like the look of just white foam, so I was trying to cover everything up with fake plants just to make it look more appealing to the eye. So that was pretty much everything. It was just a very basic setup. It was very easy to do. After all of that was finished, I finally added a filter. It took me about a week because I was planning on getting a new filter and it didn't happen. I happened to have an old filter sitting around that I ended up just using that one. It is the like reptile fountain. I'm not sure what it's called because I bought it forever ago, but you see these filters at like Petco and PetSmart. I've tried using this filter in the past for a turtle and it was not working out very well. I happen to just still have it and I don't particularly like this filter, so I'm probably going to change it out in the future, but for now, I mean, it's doing the job. I don't want him to just be in stagnant, dirty water because that's not healthy for him. So at least now he has some flow. Hopefully it's going to be cleaning it up, but I'm sure I'm going to have to do a ton of water changes on it just to keep up with everything and make sure that he has nice clean water. Also, I do want to cover in his little burrowing pit, I basically just used the substrate that I was using before, which is the Josh's Frogs Bio Bedding. It is a bioactive substrate. It has isopods and springtails in it. So I'm keeping everything nice and moist for him. There's also some sphagnum moss. Actually, it's not sphagnum moss. It's forest floor moss. So that's what I put in there. All of that is just mixed up, and if he does poop in it, it's bioactive. He does have huge poops though, so honestly I would always recommend to spot clean for a pixie frog because their poops are just enormous. So that's pretty much everything. It seems like he's definitely utilizing the water way more than I even thought he would. He absolutely loves to swim. And he's able to also access the pit where he can just go and burrow because I've seen him do both now, which just makes me so happy. I do also have a heat light at the top. It's just a 50 watt just to be safe. It is summertime here, but we do have the air conditioning on, and I do want to make sure that he does have a warm spot in his enclosure. So I have that above the little burrowing pit with all of his substrate. So, and again, if it gets a little too warm, he can burrow himself and get away from that heat as well. But that's why I was sure to make sure it was just a 50 watt because you don't want to overdo it with an amphibian. That can be pretty dangerous. So that's what I chose to do. Some people use heating pads, but he has like such a deep pit to burrow in that I didn't think a heating pad would be sufficient. He would literally have to go all the way to the bottom to get the heat. So it's just not something I was interested in, and I find that the basking light looks better and it works better for him as well. And so that is how I set up Janemba's new enclosures. So I hope that you guys like it. I think that he likes it, which is all that matters to me. It was so easy, so basic to make. I would have liked to make it more naturalistic, of course, because obviously that's more appealing. But again, this guy is just... He's like a bull. Like, he will just ruin everything. Live plants don't stand a chance to Janemba. So this is just the course of action that I had to take for this type of a situation. So again, I hope that this video was helpful. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.